in the heart of a land brushed by ancient winds and touched by golden suns. There lay a village no map had ever known. Its name was Nyamako, the place where the sky listens. And though the skies did listen, the people below had long since stopped hearing one another. This was a place of cracked earth and cracked hearts. Once, generations ago, Nyamako had thrived. Children played near glistening streams. Elders laughed under moonlight. And every harvest was a reason to dance. But as time passed, a slow sickness spread. Not of body, but of spirit. A hunger, a thirst. A greed no one knew when it began. Perhaps it crept in the moment someone looked at another's full basket with envy. Perhaps when a man chose coin over kindness. Or maybe, it started with a single wish. You see, there was a tale the elders told in hushed tones. A story passed from mother to child, from Graya to grandson. The tale of a tree on ancient baobab, older than memory itself. They said this tree had roots that reached the bones of the earth, and leaves that shimmered like morning dew on lion fur. It grew only when the world needed healing, and it had the power to grant a single wish to any soul pure enough to hear its heartbeat. Not riches, not revenge, but truthful, soul-deep wishes that rose like incense from the heart. Yet there was a warning. The tree sees the truth of your spirit. Lie to it, and it will answer with your true desire, not your spoken words. Wish from greed, and it may grant you what you deserve, not what you desire. And so, for many seasons, the legend sat like a sleeping lion, feared, forgotten, half believed, until one year, it returned. The rains had not come. The rivers shrank like frightened serpents, and hope had dried alongside the fields. Houses stood hollow. Families whispered of leaving. And each morning, people woke with the same thought. If I had just one wish, some longed for gold, others for power. Some just for food to last the week. And then, one evening when the moon hung low and red like a watcher in the sky, it happened. A glow rose from the forest of Entombed once sacred, now feared. A golden shimmer, soft and steady, pulsed like a heartbeat. Those brave or desperate enough to go saw something they could scarcely believe. A tree, but not just any tree. Its bark shimmered with silver lines. Its leaves hummed like birdsong. And at its base, a ring of stones glowed in quiet harmony. The elders wept. It is the wishing tree, they said. It has returned. But who among us is pure enough to speak to it? They came by night, in secret. The butcher with eyes full of coin. The merchant thinking of riches beyond his hut. The widow, bitter with years of loneliness. Each one knelt. Each one whispered their desire, and each one was seen. The tree said nothing aloud, but the next morning, something always happened. The butcher awoke with a mouth that could no longer speak lies, but in a town of trickery. Truth became his curse. The merchant's gold turned to beetles, crawling and hissing from every jar he opened. The widow received her long-lost husband, only to find he was a cruel spirit returned from the wrong realm. The people began to whisper, "The tree is cursed. It plays tricks. It brings only sorrow." But it was not the tree that twisted their wishes. It was their hearts. And while others schemed and plotted, there lived a girl. Her name was Ayana. She was not born into wealth, nor was she praised. She lived alone, in a small clay hut at the edge of the village, orphaned young, raised by no one and everyone. She cleaned the elders' mats without being asked. She left baskets of yams at doors, too proud to accept charity. And she sang to herself not because she was happy, but to remind herself joy still existed. She did not believe she was special. She did not dream of wishes. She simply was kind. And sometimes that is all the magic the world needs. One night, while carrying a basket of cassava to a sick neighbor, Ayana felt something, a pull, a whisper not in words, but in soul. She turned toward the forest, feet moving before thought, and there bathed in starlight stood the tree. Unlike the others, she did not rush. She knelt, and unlike the others, she did not wish. Instead, she closed her eyes, and listened. Tree hums gently, as if breathing. And the tree listened too. For the first time since it had risen from the soil, it spoke. "Child of kindness, what is your heart's desire?" Ayana thought. She could have asked for a home, a family, warmth, comfort. But she looked around her at the broken village, at people so lost in their own hunger they forgot others, hungered too, at the emptiness that no gold could fill. And then she said, softly, "I wish for the people to see each other, not with eyes, but with hearts, to understand, to feel as I do." The tree was silent for a long while. Then its leaves shimmered like sunlight through tears, and the earth sighed. The change was not loud. It was not thunder or fire. It began with a stranger helping lift another's water pot, with a neighbor sharing seeds instead of hoarding, with laughter, timid at first, then full. The river flowed again. The fields bore fruit. Children danced without fear. No one remembered why they'd ever been cruel, but Ayana did. She remembered because she had seen their pain, and now she saw their healing. The people of Niamiko did not realize at first that anything had changed. It was too gradual, too quiet. A man who had once shouted at a barefoot child for touching his fruit stall suddenly found himself offering the child a mango, smiling awkwardly as if unsure what had come over him. A woman who'd hoarded her millet under lock and key began to leave small bowls outside her door at dawn, pretending they were forgotten scraps. But deep down, she hoped someone hungry would find them. The village, once a brittle shell of survival, slowly breathed again. And though no one could name it, something deeper stirred a softness returning to hardened faces. It wasn't magic, in the way they had hoped for, but it was something stronger, a remembering. They remembered that they were once neighbors, not enemies, sisters, not strangers. They remembered that the rhythm of drums was sweeter when danced together, but not. Everyone was at peace, for even as the village bloomed, envy took root again. They whispered in corners, in hushed voices and lowered eyes. Have you noticed? It all changed after Ayana visited the tree. She walks like someone who knows secrets. She says nothing but everything is better. Suspicion is a clever shadow. It follows. Even the innocent, Ayana, who once moved unseen among them, now drew glances. She still gave freely, still smiled. But now, that kindness so pure before was questioned. She must have wished for power. She charmed the tree. Why her? Why not me? One morning, the chief's son stood before the village and spoke. He had once tried to wish at the tree, and nothing had happened. His heart, full of thirst for dominance, had been turned away. But pride wounded is pride that poisons. He said, "We deserve to know what she wished." The tree listened to her alone. What if this peace is an illusion? A spell? What if it ends? And fear, once banished by kindness, slithered back in. They came to Ayana's hut at dusk. They did not knock. They surrounded her with wide eyes and unsure hearts. Some came with questions, others with accusations, a few with stones. She stepped out, her face calm as water. The sun dipped low behind her, wrapping her in quiet gold. She didn't plead, she didn't deny. She only said, "I wished for you to see each other." That was all. But the fear in them had no room for understanding. They did not harm her not with hands. But their silence after she spoke was sharper than any blade. And in that silence, the tree heard. That night, the wishing tree vanished. It did not fall. It did not burn. It simply was no longer there, as though it had never been in its place. A single seed rested in the soil, round, shining faintly. Waiting, they found it. The next morning, the villagers were afraid to touch it, afraid of what it might bring. But Ayana, silent, steady Ayana, picked it up. She held it like a promise. And then, she left. No one saw where she went. Some say she walked until the sun took her. Others say she planted the seed in another forgotten village, where pain had settled like dust. And some say she became the tree that she walked still from, village to village, unseen. A girl with bare feet and a glowing heart, planting something deeper than roots. In the years that followed, Nyamako flourished, not through miracles, not from gold or spells, but because, for a time, Te had remembered. And though they would forget again because people always do, the story of Ayana remained. It was told by elders at dusk, by children under woven blankets, by travelers who passed through, whispering of a girl and a wish and a tree that saw the truth. And in that story lived the lesson. The greatest magic does not change the world for you. It changes you for the world. Ayana walked alone. She did not look back. With each step, the earth beneath her seemed to breathe softer, as if grateful. With each place she passed, something invisible lingered, like the echo of a song long forgotten but strangely familiar. She wandered far beyond Nyamako, past rivers that coiled like sleeping serpents, through forests still untouched by axe or foot, across plains where wildebeests roamed and stars spilled without shame. Wherever she went, she left no footprints, only stories. People remembered her, even when they hadn't met her in one village. A blind child began seeing dreams after a stranger sang to her beneath a baobab. In another, a boy found courage to speak for the first time after sharing a mango with a girl who didn't give her name. In a town surrounded by thorns, elders began planting gardens again because someone had carved the word kindness into the base of a tree overnight. No one could prove Ayana had been there. But the air always felt cleaner. The people always stood a little taller. And someone always whispered, she passed through here. She never looked for another wishing tree. She carried the first one inside her now. Meanwhile, Nyamako aged. The children of those who once feared Ayana grew up hearing both truths and twisted retellings. Some said she was a witch who cursed and fled. Others said she was a spirit who never truly existed. But most called her the kind one. They told their children, be like her. And slowly, over the course of generations, Ayana became legend. But legends, like rivers, branch and split in a neighboring valley, one untouched by the events in Nyamako. A new village, named Kumasi, grew fast, prosperous, proud. There, people did not believe in tales. They believed in grain, silos and walls and order. They scoffed at stories of trees that whispered and girls who changed the hearts of men. But one year, their crops failed. Their goats birthed weaklings. Their wells dried despite dark clouds overhead. The chief's advisors said it was a curse. The elders said it was punishment. But the people just asked, why us? And in the market, an old woman with a voice like worn cloth said, because you have forgotten to see one another. They laughed at her, but that night, the winds changed. A girl no older than Ayana had been when she met the treeist. At the edge of the village, staring into the wild. Her name was Zenzi. Quiet, observant, invisible. Most days, she was not like Ayana in form. Her spirit was fire, not water. Fierce, not gentle. But at her core was the same seed purity without pretense. That night, something called to her. A pulse, a shimmer, a memory not hers. Zenzi followed it, through thorns, through vines, through stories in her blood, and there where no one had dared go. In decades stood a tree. It was not the same tree Ayana had found. This one was taller. Its bark darker, its roots gnarled from sleeping too long, but it pulsed with the same stillness. It glowed with the same knowing. Zenzi stepped forward. She did not kneel. She did not pray. She simply placed her hand on its bark and whispered, "I don't want them to suffer. I want them to wake up." And the tree, answered, not with words, but with wind, with warmth, with a single leaf falling into her hand like a promise. The next morning, rain fell over Kumasi for the first time in a year. But it was not just the sky that opened. A merchant returned a child's stolen coin. A warrior apologized to his brother. A mother wept and hugged the daughter she'd banished. Zenzi said nothing. She walked among them as if nothing had happened. But in the forest, the tree watched. Not all in Kumasi welcomed the change. The powerful always fear awakening. In others, what they cannot control. And though Zenzi made no demands, her presence alone was dangerous to those whose rule thrived on fear. So the whispers began again. She's a witch. She brings the old ways. She wants to overthrow. But Zenzi, like Ayana before her, did not fight. She walked, and the tree too sank into the earth once more, as if it had only come to deliver its message and move on. This time, it left 2 seeds, and people began to wonder, how many seeds had Ayana planted? How many villages had been touched? How many hearts had held the wish not for riches, not for revenge, but for understanding? Asterisk, time passed. Not in seasons, now, but in centuries. The stories of Ayana and Zenzi stretched like rivers across lands, changing names as they went. Some called them saints, some spirits. Others said they were myths crafted by those desperate for hope but the trees. They kept returning, quietly, secretly, always when the world was on the brink of forgetting itself. Each time, the tree would appear to a single soul, never rich, never loud, never powerful. Always a child, a farmer, a girl, a boy, a dreamer, and each time the world would change just a little, but people no longer wanted a little. They wanted more. More. Trees, more wishes, more answers. And so men began to search. Scholars, explorers, even mercenaries, all obsessed with the legend of the wishing tree. They tore through forests, mapped ancient paths, chased oral stories passed down through drum and tongue and smoke. And eventually, they found a seed, not in the soil, but in a market stitched into an old woman's necklace in a remote town. She didn't know its power, but they did. They took it, quietly, ruthlessly. From that moment on, the story changed. The world was no longer content to wish it wanted to own. A group emerged, silent, organized, ruthless. They called themselves the Order of the Root. Publicly, they were philanthropists, ecologists, scientists. Privately, they were collectors of seeds, stories, souls. They believed the trees were not sacred, but technology, ancient nature tech, gifted by something beyond human memory. And if technology could be understood, it could be replicated, controlled, monetized, they began gathering every remnant. Every whisper, they imprisoned elders for oral knowledge. They raided tombs. They cloned bark. They planted forests not to grow but to manipulate. And all the while, the true magic, the one bound to heart and spirit, grew quiet. The trees stopped appearing. The order began calling those who believed in the purity myth naive. Purity doesn't matter, they said. Wishes can be engineered. But they were wrong, because the trees had not disappeared. They were waiting in a crowded city built of glass and noise. Lived a boy named Kate. He was not pure. He lied sometimes. A coup, he stole once. He laughed when he shouldn't and cried when no one was looking. But in him was something the others had lost. Remorse. Not the kind that seeks forgiveness, but the kind that seeks change. Kito had grown up hearing the myth of Ayana in bedtime stories told by his grandmother. She said Ayana's wish was never for herself, but for others. He used to laugh, but the older he grew, the more the world felt heavy. Greed, division. Silence between people who once sang together. One night, while walking home beneath broken street lamps, he saw it, a single leaf, glowing, floating, falling through the air like a tear. It landed at his feet, soft, warm, familiar. When he looked up, a tree stood before him, massive, rooted through concrete, cracking the sidewalk, yet surrounded by silence. No one else saw it. Kito stepped forward. His heart beat like a drum before battle. He didn't know what to say, but his lips parted and the truth spilled out. I don't know if I deserve a wish, but I wish people could feel again. Not just think, not just take, just feel. The tree listened, and this time answered loudly. That night, the world changed, not with lightning, not with earthquakes, but with feeling. People woke up with forgotten memories. Fathers wept at old songs. Mothers forgave their own reflections. Enemies paused before striking. The tree vanished, but its pulse remained in the people. The order panicked. They traced the event. Found CCTV footage, Kito standing before a tree no one else could see. They hunted him, but he was already gone, not hiding. Walking, like Ayana, like Zenzi, leaving seeds behind, not in soil, but in actions. A shared meal, a defended child, a laugh in a war zone, and in that laughter, the tree grew again. The Order of the Root had spent lifetimes collecting bark and data. They had built underground labs, stored genomes in vaults, mapped emotional signatures, but they made one fatal error. They studied the tree. They never studied the wish. When Kito's moment rippled through the world, the Order's sensors lit up, not from one location, but thousands. A violinist in Berlin began to weep mid-performance, and the crowd wept with him. A teacher in Ghana hugged a student for the first time in years because she suddenly remembered her own childhood loneliness. A woman in Tokyo planted a tree in her dead son's honor, and strangers helped water it every morning. No one asked why. All at once, the trees were not just in forests or myths, they were in people. This terrified the Order. They had created formulas to calculate wish energy, but now, logic applied. Their maps exploded with red dots of emotional reawakening, but there was no source to trace, no relic, no shrine, no chosen one. It was as if the trees had escaped, and in truth, they had. Not because they were defeated, but because they had evolved. The tree had never been a relic, never bark and root alone. It had always been a mirror, reflecting only what the heart could offer freely. The Order collapsed from within. Some members defected, secretly planting seeds in abandoned parks, orphanages, prisons. Others went mad, trying to reclaim what they never truly possessed. The leaders, desperate, built a synthetic tree. It glowed, it pulsed, it responded to biometric scans. They opened it to the public and charged for access. People came. They touched. They cried. But nothing changed because something was missing. The wisher, meanwhile, across the world, Kito's story began to spread. Not through the news. The news was too slow, but through whispers, songs, street murals, anonymous posts online. Each ending with, "Wish not for change. Wish to be the change." A movement began not led by governments, but by feelers. Children, artists, healers, storytellers. They began planting memory. Garden spaces where anyone could come and share. A story, no transaction. No miracle, just human connection. And in those spaces, trees began to grow. Not always literal. Some were poems etched into benches. Others were street corners where no one was allowed to be alone. Some were even digital coded into games that made you choose kindness to advance, and for each act of raw, honest emotion, a seed bloomed. But then came the backlash, not from the order, from the people. Some called the movement childish. Feelings won't feed us. Kindness won't fix the economy. Wishing doesn't solve war. And perhaps they were right. But the tree had never promised solutions, only sight. And once you see with a clear heart, you act differently. In one final surge, the world reached a tipping point, not through crisis, but through choice. One day, all across the globe, every tree bloomed at once. Some in forests, some in paintings, some in silence, each one glowed with the same gentle hum. A question, not spoken, not written, but felt. Are you ready to wish without expecting? Billions felt it, but only a few answered. A mother kissed her daughter's forehead, even though she herself was tired of life. A former soldier forgave himself in the mirror. A politician resigned not out of scandal, but because he no longer believed in his own words. Those were the wishers and the trees. Let go, they became wind, light, whispers between. Drumbeats. The magic was never meant to stay in one place. It was always meant to move, to travel through us. And as for Kito, he was last seen on a dirt path, handing a seed to a girl with laughing eyes. In a refugee camp, when asked his name, he only smiled and said, "I'm just someone who felt something once and didn't turn away." Asterisk, asterisk, the world had changed. No more war, no more hunger. No more greed on the surface. Clean cities gleamed under artificial suns. Food printed fresh from protein strands. Disputes settled by predictive algorithms. Everything was balanced. Everything was ... calculated. But something was missing. No one remembered how to cry or laugh from their belly, or forgive with trembling hands, or love without permission. They had optimized humanity, the cost of its humanity. Stories were stored, not shared. Music was composed by code. Art was designed by audience preference. Not feeling children were raised by machines that taught them the world's history, but not its heart. In this new era, there were no trees, only towers, no forests, only networks. But deep beneath one of these, cities where no sun reached. In the cracks of a forgotten train tunnel, a seed waited, buried, dormant, not dead. One day, child wandered into that tunnel. Her name was Luma. She didn't fit the world. She asked too many questions, drew faces on walls, laughed at birds that weren't real. Her parents thought she had a glitch. The system flagged her for emotional irregularity, but Luma didn't care. She felt, and that was dangerous, so she ran, and she found the tunnel. It was silent there, not empty, waiting, in the dust. She saw something glowing faintly, a seed, curled, cold, fragile. She didn't know what it was. But she knew how to love broken things, so she sang to it. Not a song from the databases, a melody of her own making. Off-key, strange, beautiful, and the seed cracked not from water, from recognition. The ground pulsed, faintly, then louder and louder. And, in the dark, a tree began to rise. It pushed through concrete, cracked titanium, reclaimed sky. The world above blinked in alarm. What is this anomaly? But Luma stood at its base, arms wide, eyes wet, and the tree bloomed not with flowers, but memories. Ayana's first wish, Zenzi's fire, Kito's truth. Even those who had long forgotten remembered. The world halted, not out of fear, but out of something more terrifying to them, wonder, and then something else happened. People began to feel again, not perfectly, not all at once, but mothers began humming lullabies. Strangers shared stories again, not for likes, but for connection. Some cried, confused by the salt on their cheeks. Some laughed so loudly the streets echoed. Some simply stood beneath the tree and said, "I didn't know I missed this." The world didn't fall. It softened. It didn't regress. It remembered. Progress became presence. Innovation became intimacy. The tree never spoke, but its message was clear. Wishes are not magic. They are mirrors. What you ask reveals who you are. And if your heart is open, the world answers back. Ayana's story lived on. Zenzi's spark, Kito's moment, Luma's melody, each one. A single wish, not for power or perfection, but for feeling. And as long as someone, somewhere, chooses. Kindness in secret, a tree will grow, not in soil, but in the space between people, and it will whisper, to the pure in heart, the world still listens. Asterisk, asterisk, thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment Ayana so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button. Comment your thought and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, stay happy. Goodbye.